Hi, I'm Lisa Singer. I am the Senior Director of Event Programming at Media Post, and this is Brand Insider BTS, where I get to pull back the curtain on some of the most influential women marketers today. And with me is Marie Kelly, and she is the Head of Marketing and Strategic Partnerships at the Sloomoo Institute. Hey, Marie.
Hi, Lisa. So nice to see you again.
Yeah, no, it was so fun seeing you. You made the event so fun with the slime. Like, I can't say, for anyone who doesn't know Sloomoo Institute, it is all about slime and experience, and we'll talk a little bit more, but having the slime there, it just really added, I think it just makes everyone feel like a kid, and it just really makes it a little bit more fun.
It's hard to take yourself too seriously when you're playing with slime.
Definitely. So, and I loved that. And well, actually, should I be calling you, what is it, Muru? And what would I be, Lusu?
Be Lusu. Yes. Yes.
So,
So those that don't know, yeah, so Sloomoo got its name from a trend that was going on in the slime community where to make your slime name, you replace your vowels with double O's. So Marie becomes Muru, slime becomes Sloomoo. And yeah, the founders knew we didn't always want to just be slime. We wanted to have the ability to expand into other things. So being playful with that trend was a fun way for us to do that. And it's actually the first thing we have all of our guests do when they come into our venue, which Lisa, you still need to come visit us.
yeah, when I'm in New York, I'm going to go visit there.
Yes, we'll look forward to it.
Yes, I am definitely doing that. So, Muru, my first question to you, I have to ask, slime completely took off. It just, I know it's been around, but really, like in 2015 or so, it just took off and became such, not only with kids, but on adults and on TikTok. And obviously, with the Sloomoo Institute, you're seeing that where you're not just getting kids and you're getting adults, you're getting all different groups of people. But let's backtrack to maybe when you were a kid. Was there that kind of thing for you? Was there either a toy or an activity that you really were drawn to or just, couldn't get enough of?
Yeah, I think for me, well, I was a big Barbie girl. I loved Barbies, and my brother was a G.I. Joe fan, and we would actually play together and build custom furniture with blocks and Legos and cushions, and we created kind of our own whole storyline. So that was how we would play. I would, from a sensory standpoint, I wasn't someone as in my youth that played with slime much, but now as an adult, it's part of my everyday, and I kind of get earnestly in the habit of playing with it and even forgetting, and it is very de-stressing. But yeah, so Barbie girl was probably my chosen toy in my youth.
Yeah. It's funny, I hadn't even really noticed you because you are doing it so like you do it every day, like all the time. Like I wasn't even noticing until you said that. I'm like, wait, there's a blob in her hand. So I hadn't even noticed that. And I was actually G.I. Joe. I was a little bit of a tomboy, so I used to do the whole G.I. Joe thing. But yes.
Oh, yeah. We played together, and it was, we'd play hide and seek and manhunt in the forest. And so yes, it was not 100% all girl, but that was, the toy that I like to play with. And we brought all of our toys together into one magical fantasy universe.
Did you talk with Debbie Haig? She used to be at Mattel. She was a Barbie girl. She covered all that. So
I know. Well, and hey, Barbie's got their film coming out. It's a big moment for Barbie.
Oh yeah, definitely. So speaking of films, TV show, I know that you worked on AMC's Mad Men, which very cool. I love John Hamm. You were there for 2 seasons, I think. And obviously the advertising industry on Mad Men was, very sexist and, probably and racist and just sort of that good old boys background. And was depicting the way advertising was really back in the 60s. It was based in the 60s. But also advertising was really a part of, during the 60s, a lot of cultural movements, women's rights, civil rights, anti-war protests, things like that. And advertising represented culture in many ways. And it also influenced public thought in many ways. Do you think that's still true today?
Absolutely. I mean, I spent my time on the agency side at some of the biggest ad agencies that are in the market. And I think that it's a huge corporate and social and personal responsibility ethically that we have to be intentional about the work that we're creating and that we're putting out into the world and to whomever might be consuming it, especially youth. So yes, I believe in the power of advertising. I believe in the importance of it. And I've been an advocate for all of the kind of touch points that you were just mentioning for women's rights, you know, racial and ethical equality, LGBTQIA plus, et cetera. I actually was involved with a conference several years back that was chief marketer was doing something on marketing to women in the Me Too era and what brands were doing on that moment as it kind of took off on a rocket ship. And at the time I was involved with the campaign with a client of mine, and we had done a program with Janelle Monáe and her Femme the Future initiative, and was really kind of looking at putting women and women of color in front of and behind the camera, and have worked with groups like Free the Bid that's responsible for kind of opening up the pipeline of talent so that no one has the excuse to say, well, we just can't find XYZ representation. So I believe it's incredibly important.
And I love what you say in the sense of be in front of the camera and behind the camera, because I do think that sometimes it's lip service when a corporation may, you know, throw diverse people within an ad, but then maybe within their walls, you're not seeing that diversity. And I think, and you're seeing that with movies as well, and just in the entertainment industry, but in all industries, you want to have it both, because the ones telling the story, if you have a diverse group of people telling the story, then you're going to get those more authentic, diverse, whether it be commercials or movies or whatever it may be. So I think that that's an important thing to also take note of.
Yeah, it's the importance of the people around the table as decisions are being made and ideas are being pitched. There needs to be a direct line to the consumer into the diversity segments. And if that's not represented in those rooms, often the wrong choices are being made.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, and you mentioned, you know, being on the agency side, a lot of your career was, you mentioned AMC already, and now Sloomoo. So talk about that when you were, because you really, you know, I mean, obviously, and I feel like the theme is that experiential kind of experience thing, but was that when you were graduating school, what was that your ambition? Did you see that you wanted to be part of these events, or did you see marketing, or what did you see for yourself?
Yeah. So AMC was actually my client when I was on the
Oh,
agency.
okay.
But I did work a little bit kind of briefly for them when their team had needed a little extra support too. But yeah, so my career until Sloomoo has really been fully on the agency side. As far as when I was coming out of school, so I double majored in communications and psychology. I started out in psychology thinking I wanted to do child psych, and maintained my interest in that area, but came to a point where I knew that's not professionally what I could do. I didn't think I could separate the work and the personal myself. But I really was interested in psychology, so I continued taking the classes while I switched to communications and ended up leaving with a double major, and was taking art history classes for fun because I enjoy art. And so that's really lended to my kind of creative world that I do professionally. From an experience standpoint, when I was in college, I was involved with a lot of organizations, was in a sorority, was involved with a lot of different clubs and groups, and always really liked what, you know, doing events looked like. But really, I got my first exposure to it when I started doing programs with NASCAR down in North Carolina. And for the first time, understood what brand activations were, and met someone and introduced myself, and that person worked for Wasserman, and they were the agency executing their brand activations. So when I was graduating, a professor, an adjunct professor that I had at the time, he was the head of crisis comms for Bank of America, which is headquartered in Charlotte. And he had relationships up here in New York and set me up with a couple informational interviews at a PR agency. And I came in and flew myself to New York, did a bunch of interviews. And while I was meeting with them, was talking about my interest in the event space and what I had been recently doing for programs with NASCAR and what I had done while I was in school. And one of the agencies I was with, it was like serendipity. They're like, oh, we just did this project with this other company. You should look them up while you're in town. And I did the next morning, and I cold called the CEO and ended up going to the office that day, meeting him, and ended up working at that company for 6 years.
Wow.
So, and it was at the time, it was a startup kind of smaller team and growing fast, and they were adding in different services and capabilities. So I had the opportunity to dabble in working on PR projects, working in partnerships, working on web projects, doing like really pure kind of event operations projects. But I often was knocking on the door of our head of accounts, asking to work on what I thought were the kind of sexier projects with a lot of our entertainment clients, which is how I got involved with brands like AMC and Oprah and others. But that's where I started. And then I moved on to some other agencies to continue to expand my experience. But that was the origin. When I was in school, I didn't really, now being on the other side and being in this industry, I had no idea that this career path existed the way that it does. So it's often something I share with the younger people in my life, like my niece who's in school now. But
Yeah, no, and I think that, I mean, there's so many things I want to unravel there, what you said, but one of them, I think that is so key, that people don't necessarily know what's out there fully. So you have an idea of what you want to do, but then by getting out there and taking opportunities, it can then show you either one, okay, I definitely don't want to do this, or two, this is a good path that I want. But I just have to go right quickly to the NASCAR. Did you get to ride in any of the race cars?
I did not know. Typically the activations I was doing were the fan experiences that were pre and post race. So those, as soon as the races would start, the activations would kind of shut down. But what was cool was they, as part of the celebration for the races, they would do Coca-Cola 500 Speed Street, which was basically they take over the streets of the city and do music concerts and all kinds of things. And I got to support some stage management during one of those at one of the main stages, which was very cool at the time. Still cool, but.
Well, I love I mean, if I weren't, in journalism and doing that side of things, my tendency went towards events. Like it was definitely the whole, it's that putting together, having a vision of what you want to put together, putting all of the pieces in place and just doing it. So what you're doing is, I love that. So I think it's amazing, and that you were able to do it throughout your career. And it kind of comes full circle when you think about it. You were a psychology major and thinking of being for kids. And here you are now with doing, Sloomoo, which is helpful. I mean, Sloomoo, yes, it's fun and it's a game and it's slime, but it's also very much that, sensory, helpful, calming for children who maybe have certain issues. And that's what you do on a day-to-day basis today. So I think it sort of, brings you all back.
Yeah, and we have a resident psychiatrist that we partner with. Her name's Dr. Judith Joseph. And as we partner with other groups like Goldie Hawn's Foundation, Mind Up, they've got a resident expert that is their mental health expert as well. And so for me, it's a really nice way to flex, like you said, kind of my personal background and interest into what we do day to day. And so much of the efficacy side of what this product does and the ethos of what the founders are trying to put out into the world really, for me on a personal level, really delivers on a lot of things that I carry close to heart and the types of business that I want to be involved with, which is really exciting and very powerful.
Yeah, no, it is. It's really wonderful. And I didn't realize, like my nieces love slime. My friend's daughter, my best friend's daughter, she's all into slime. And so I've experienced it. I've played with it with them, but I never thought of it under those terms until, talking with you and learning more about Sloomoo, and it makes sense, because it does have that, not only the texture of it and the feel, but I think it's the movement, so, and I know you guys are all about the senses, it's just in terms of food. So I want to do kind of a rapid fire for you. So since Sloomoo, as I said, is all about the senses, I'm going to just find out your senses. What comes for you for the most? So like, first we'll talk about color. What's your favorite color?
The majority of my life, it was blue. Hands down, it was blue. Now I kind of go full rainbow, but if I had to pick one, blue.
Blue. Okay. Favorite smell?
Recently with our slimes, it's been our watermelon and our tart cherry.
So fruity.
Yeah, which is unusual for me. I tend to personally in my home, like if I buy candles and things, I like more like masculine and like smoky scents and things, but I've been really liking a lot of our fruity scents.
Got it. Feel?
Um, so the one I'm currently playing with is a Floam. It's got bead pieces in it, and that's kind of the mood that I'm in today, is I want like a little crunch and texture. Sometimes I want clear and smooth, but yeah, I like a texture today.
You like a texture and taste, which I know doesn't come to play at Sloomoo because no one's eating the slime, but what's your favorite flavor or taste?
I have a sweet tooth. I like a dessert. I'm not a candy person per se, but I like a sweet at the end of the day as like a personal treat.
And cake, cookies, what
So, yeah,
pastry?
yeah, recently at night I've been doing like a little tea, like a herbal tea and like a biscuit cookie or something.
Oh, okay. It's
But yeah,
very,
if I go out
very,
to dinner, if I
very
go,
proper.
it's it's in honor of my grandmother who recently passed. So it's become a
Oh,
new
sorry.
tradition. A new tradition that I've been embracing in the last few months that, yeah, it's been nice. But
Oh, that's so nice. So, I hate following up that, but I wanted to throw in a couple of worst. So like, like worst feel, like, like you normally you would say slimy, but in this case, slimy is actually a good thing. But what would be something like if you put your hand in or to stepped in, it would be the worst, like, ew for you, the cringe.
mm, I think if it, I'm thinking of like those mystery boxes that you see on social media sometimes where they like put their
I
hand
would,
in, they know what it is. If it were like wet, like spaghetti or something, that would be weird.
yeah.
We also have some slimes that are more wet than others, and I tend to not love those ones as much. Like, so yeah,
So,
I think we'll go with maybe the spaghetti as a.
okay. Okay, well, you did very well on the rapid fire. Thank you so much. But so now that I'm sure this was not your biggest challenge, what has been like it in your career? And and one thing I did notice about what you were talking about is you kept making those cold calls. You kept talking to people. They would suggest something. You kept moving forward. I think that's such a valuable lesson for anyone just starting out or even within the career, just to keep it seems like you kind of came across as fearless, like you just knew what you wanted or when opportunities arose and you put yourself out there. So I think that that's fantastic. I'm curious if there was a time where maybe you did that, or maybe there wasn't the opportunity, there was just a challenge that almost seemed overwhelming, ready to give up, but then you were able to persevere and you got through it.
Yeah. Yeah. So is the question, sorry, about
The
a
biggest
person?
challenge, yeah, sorry, I tend to I go off a little bit, but no, yeah, basically, was there a time in your life, in your career, or even in personal, but that affected the career, or something where it just seemed like impassive, like you couldn't get through it, but ultimately, obviously, you did. And how were you able to get through it?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked on some really big projects with some really ambitious components to them. And there have been moments where they've felt really daunting. And like, are we going to get to the other side? How are we going to do this? And I think there's always a way through. And I
Mm.
think it's raising your hand if there is if that's being seen or felt, so that you can avoid the iceberg ahead, right? It's like, and you can work with a leadership team member or a counterpart, and it becomes about a team solution, because nothing that we do in this industry can be done alone. Like, it is a team undertaking, and it's on anyone to raise their hand if there's like, a break in the boat. And then it's like, what is the problem we're solving for? Is it that we're under resourced? Is it that we need to remove some things on the to-do list that are taxing the team that shouldn't be a part of this current priority mix right now? But yeah, I think I've only ever taken on big, scary things or ambitious things, because that's really what excites me. And that's what keeps me feeling the fuel. My father always teases me that it's like, if things slow down, I get anxious. It's like, okay, but it's what drives me. So I think every time there's been big, ambitious projects, it's about, okay, how are we going to do this? What's the right team? And then having a safe space for yourself and others to be able to raise their hand when things feel too much.
So you like the challenge, you like that. I'm curious, when you were growing up and as a kid, were you that way as well? Did you look like the competition or the challenge, or maybe go for those things that wasn't that easy yet?
Yeah, it's interesting when you say competition. It was only in my professional life that somebody once said, they're like, oh, you're so competitive, not in a kind of competition with others sense, but just that kind of speed to push and do and try. And, I never saw myself that way because I associate that with athleticism and I've never been an athlete. And so for me, I was like, I don't get it. I don't see it. But yeah, I think where I can draw reference back to most is kind of starting in high school on. When I was in high school, I worked 2 to 3 jobs. I was in school. I was involved with a bunch of organizations. My parents always kind of had a requirement that we had to be in, extracurricular activities. And also that we had, if we wanted things, we had to work for them. So I started working very young. And then that carried through in college. Like I said, I double majored. I also had a couple jobs while I was in school, was in a sorority and a leadership role and other things. And now that's carried through into kind of my professional life with keeping things dynamic.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you, one, yes, like to keep busy, but also it just seems like you have that, you want to, I don't want to say excel, but just you want to contribute and do the best, like get to wherever you need to be and just keep being challenged. I feel like you probably challenge yourself more than even others might challenge you.
Yes, that would be accurate. I think we're often, and not to gender stereotype ourselves, because I'm not a fan of when that happens, but I do think that women, we tend to be harder on ourselves than others are on us. And, there's so many stats about women being overqualified for a position before they're ready to ask for the role. Whereas that's not always the case on the other side. And there's a lot of data to support that. But yes, I've always been probably a tougher critic on myself than others.
Yeah, no, and I agree with what you're saying. I've never been one to like growing up as a tomboy. I guess I always just boys, girls, whatever. I didn't like the stereotypes. So I agree with that. But I do think what you're saying is very accurate in terms of women not necessarily, they almost want to be perfect at it, or they don't, I don't know, or they feel obligated to be able to check all the boxes or whatever it may be. And I know I've been guilty of that. And I know I have friends who have been, and as you said, there's studies that show that. And whereas men kind of go for the jobs that they want, women go for the jobs they think they deserve. And
There's actually, I actually saw this disclaimer in a job post recently. It was the Whitney Museum has now in any job post that they put out, kind of a footer that basically lists out whatever the job is, the years of requirements necessary, et cetera. And then they have a disclaimer at the bottom that basically says, even if you don't feel that you fulfill all of these requirements, we encourage you to submit, for consideration if you're interested in this role. And then they give some stats about women, people of color, diversity segments, often self-selecting out of the candidacy pool. And I thought the way it was written was just so well done. And I thought it was such a great example in the industry of what good can look like and how we open the door for others to feel that they have the permission to kind of raise their hand to come forward.
yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that's amazing. And I do think that, I think people who are hiring need to see that. They need to open their eyes that even if they don't check all the boxes, there's something else that maybe comes to the table that is valued and worth hiring. But also the people who are going for these jobs need to sort of say, I can do it. What are my skill sets? Not what have I done? So I think that's really important for anyone who's looking for work or looking to do anything like that. I'm curious, is there something what do people get wrong about you when they meet you and they maybe don't know you real well, but they first are introduced to you?
I think, especially in the professional context, I think it's easy when we have conversations even like this for people to assume that I'm all about work. I am very much about my family, and if come hell or high water, if something happens, I'm on the next plane. So that's always kind of the utmost priority in my life for me, the people that I love the most. And yes, I'm very committed to any job that I have, but that's something that is never a question for me in my life about priorities.
And I would think someone working with you gets that, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure, like when you're meeting someone casually, or maybe even just a colleague, but you don't necessarily spend a lot of time with, then usually what you're talking about is work or, that kind of thing. It may go off a little bit personal, but I'm assuming probably once someone spends time with you and works with you, they probably can discover that pretty quickly.
I hope so. Yeah, I think so.
So, is there something I like to ask? Is there something you would like to unlearn?
Yeah, I think for me, it would probably be, I was really taught the power and importance of independence, which is important, but I think something I've learned and continue to learn and relearn, and see every day is the importance of teamwork and collaboration, and that nothing really can be done independently, even if that's in the support network sense, or if it's in the team task sense.
Mhm.
And spending a career in creative industries, like no one thing is attributed to one person. It really is a group coming together to make something that's never been made before often, which is the most enriching thing to see happen. In the line, you can go further. What is it? You can go faster alone, but you can go further together. I think it's just so true.
And I'm curious, like as a follow-up, not being independent, I get, obviously needing other people, but are you okay like how are you at asking for help?
I think when I was earlier in my career, there were probably times that I wasn't as comfortable doing it as a sign of possible insecurity or something. I think I've gotten much more comfortable with it. Like the example I gave earlier of kind of like iceberg ahead, it's like, okay, this is not working, or I see a problem here. Like, how can we work through this? I'm also a big believer in like being a homework sharer. So I'll often do something, get it to like 75% and be like, this is what I've got. Like, is this the right path that I'm on before I keep going?
Mm.
And I think that became a habit with when I was working on Google business as a client. They always wanted to have access to like documents as we were working in them together, which agency world usually was very formal. It was like, get it perfect and pristine and then deliver it to the client. And when it became this kind of unguarded, like, let's collaborate, let's homework share, let's like build this thing as a unit. That was a really big shift in kind of like work style from a client or seniority perspective for me. And I do it now with our founders regularly, where I'm like putting together strategic plans or forward planning for budgeting or something. And it's, okay, I've taken it this far. Am I on the right path? And like get the head nod and then keep going, versus being quiet and waiting.
Yeah, well, and also I think that could also lend it to have it be perfect first. Like before you want anyone to see it, you want to make sure all your, everything's perfect, all your, I's are dotted and all of that. But now it seems like I would say that's more of a security within yourself, that now you're able to show something warts and all. Maybe this isn't perfect, and being more secure. I feel like perfectionism is almost an insecurity. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, and I think I take it almost as a warning sign when there's assignments that are kind of out to the team and everyone's too quiet. It's like a parent with kids where you're like, uh-oh, someone's coloring on a wall in the corner, like what's happening? So I try to really encourage that, like on an individual level and on a team level, where I'm like, I'd rather see it. Like, come talk to me, let's look at it together. Like because if I'm not hearing something, that often usually means that the task is either not understood or it's more complicated for the person and I haven't given enough direction. So I really try to create the safe space for people to come and share. And I think I see the most like with interns or kind of like first, like under 5 years of experience, where that reluctancy often comes from.
Yeah. What if, and speaking of interns, maybe when you were first starting out, what advice do you wish you would have given yourself? Like what advice that someone might have given to you back then that you now know?
I think it's to be kinder to yourself, give yourself grace, and have fun like along the way. Because I think it's easy to kind of like work hard and try to progress, and sometimes to lose sight of the small wins along the way. Like, you get a good email back from someone that's like, great job, like save it. I got to the point where I started to have, like, I had a folder on my desktop and I would save those little notes. And when you're having a bad day or a bad moment or self-doubt, where it's like, go and read and like get some of those validations back. We all have to fill that tank sometimes. But yeah, I think it's just, there's going to be tough days. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be moments that feel hard. There's going to be times where you have things in your personal life that make your work life harder too, and giving yourself grace in those moments, because at the end of the day, we're all human. And that's for yourself and for your colleagues too.
Yeah. Well, you've mentioned a couple of times about refueling you, or, gets you going. What refuels you, say, at home? Like, not, like in terms of when you're getting away from work, and it may be you need to refuel yourself because you're exhausted from work or whatever it may be. But what's just for you? What do you do to, refuel yourself?
In my like direct home, if I have the time, I love to cook. I enjoy the kind of creative process of it when there isn't the time constraint of it, when it's not like I just have to feed myself because it's the end of the day. But if I can do cooking for the sake of cooking and just for fun, and for, hosting with others, outside of my home, art and nature are the things that refuel me and bring back kind of that fill that well. Art inspires me and sparks creative ideas. And I've never gone to see art where I haven't sent like a million pictures to different team members or friends, where it's like the reference points, just it sparks so many things. Or it can just be peaceful and serene, depending on what type of experience you're having. And nature for me is just the utmost reminder of just the scale of humanity, of what we're all doing here. And kids as well are a big part for me. I don't have my own children, but everyone in my life does. All of my friends have children. I come from a very big family. And I think there is such a lack of ego in children that is so important as a reminder, and there's zero pretense, and it's just so refreshing. And so even, on the weekends, I have friends that have children. I'll go and visit them and end up like playing with the kids for, a few hours.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. They look at things so innocently, it's like with that wide eye, and to like not have those, I don't like to consider myself too jaded, but there's always some jaded thoughts that, can sink in. And so I think for a little kid, there's none of that. And usually.
Yeah. And to your point earlier about things being full circle, like this job and this role that I now have at this business, like really is such an intersection of a lot of those things. I earnestly enjoy going into the space and like kind of casually like making bubbles and playing, but then like, and engaging with some of the kids between meetings. If I've got something to do and I'm going over to the space, it's such that kind of immediate connection in that way, which is so fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, and not to, you have a busy, hard, the job is, but there's so much fun involved. Like I can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's obviously there's a lot more to it, and there's the challenges in just getting things done and doing it well, which you do. But that must be nice to, maybe you just need that break and you just can go out and, sit, like you said, sit on the floor and play with some of the kids, or just sit there at your desk and do the slime. That must really sort of energize you as well.
Yeah. I mean, we like naming our products. We're in meetings coming up with products. We have new products that come out every 2 weeks. We have scent of the month. We have, boba of the month. So every single week we have new things that are releasing. So we're forever in new ideation, and it's, akin to Essie nail polish or Ben and Jerry's ice cream, like the fun whimsy around even just like the naming and product development side of what we're doing too, where it's a functional thing that we're doing. We're releasing a new product and that's serving the brand, but it's sometimes ridiculous and hysterical things that we're coming up with.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it'd be so much fun. Well, Muru, thank you so much for talking with me. This was awesome. We talked and spent a lot of time together at the event, but this is nice to hear this side of you. So I appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Lusu.
Okay, Lucy. Yes, I am Lucy. All right. So you don't do last names, just the first names.
I mean, we could. That's like expert level.
Yeah. Gore.
Yeah. And I would
be Cooley. That's pretty cool. Oh.
Murukulu.
That's a good one.
We could start a band or something.
Yes, we will. We'll be. You'll be with your name. You have to be the lead singer. My name, no one will pronounce. So, but we'll get to work on that. So,
Okay. All right.
anyway, thank you, and thank you for watching. Please recommend, let me know if there's any woman that you would like for me to sort of peel back the curtain from and find out more about them. I would love to hear your suggestions, and hopefully I will do my best to get them. And again, thank you so much, Marie.
Thank you.